for the next generation and how we do it, I think in our own case, I can speak for myself, my brothers, we're really just building on the foundations our parents set. And I think in doing that and building on that foundation, what we're really just trying to do is maybe ask a bit more difficult questions, try and get to the heart of the matter, systematic roots of problems, not just give for giving's sake, actually track the impact we're making, be more strategic and not just generous. I think we want to honor her legacy and we want to do this in memorial of her, but in some ways, it's not just something that honors a past memory. It also needs to involve with the society and sort of like adopting technology and new ways of addressing problems. Yeah. So I think that's a way that, at least from my perspective, myself and my brothers, we look at this in addressing what has been mandated to us.
Welcome to the APF podcast series. Today, I have with me an APF member, Emmanuel Etuh, who is a trustee at the Jennifer Etuh Foundation. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
It's really lovely to have you today. We met about 3 years ago when you came to the APF convening in Lagos and you spoke about the foundation. And we have since followed you. You have become an APF member, and it's been interesting to see your journey. So I want to start by asking you what growing up in a philanthropic family was like. You are a next-gen philanthropist yourself, and some experiences probably shaped you as you were growing up. So tell us how you got the sense of responsibility and purpose that you have now because of those experiences.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's good to see you again. When I think about it, on one level, I think that my family background played a significant role. I come from a very religious background. Both my parents were very committed Christians. And so growing up, the idea of being a good Samaritan, giving to others, loving your neighbor as yourself, it's something that was embedded into the fabric of our day-to-day living. But when I really think about some of my experiences growing up, I think that's also what contributed to it. For example, Mom and Dad would put my brothers and I in a car and send us off to meet our grandmother for the summer holidays. We would spend the entire summer sometimes in the village. I'm speaking of going all the way to Kogi State and spending weeks in the village with Mama. And I think over the years, that was very formative for me. Not just like in a romantic, sentimental sense, just in a very brutal sense, because growing up in that way, you quickly develop a sensitivity to inequality in society because you lived in the city, but then you would often visit your grandparents in the village and see certain gaps in society, bad roads, lack of infrastructure. And so that awareness comes to you quicker. I also think that generally living in Nigeria has its own way of helping you come to terms with this.
Right.
I guess when the government doesn't do some of their parts in solving the problems of society, it's your family members that step in to fill in the gap. So Absolutely. Growing up, seeing my parents play that role of supporting extended family members or even just people connected to them in one way or another, I think that's the connection I can draw from my background.
Right. So faith played a very important role, and also spending time away from the city.
Yes.
There's something about being in the city and then going to the village and experiencing life in that way.
Yes.
And also, just being in a space that you're not used to, that begins to open your eyes to how different
Yes.
Societies can be.
Yeah.
Like we're in the same country, but people experience it differently.
Yes.
That's profound.
Yeah.
And I'm always pleased to hear how parents impact children and in a positive way.
Yeah.
That significantly shapes the way they see life and the way they approach life. You are a trustee of the Jennifer Etuh Foundation, which was founded in honor of your late mom, Mrs. Jennifer Etuh.
Yes.
And you're also a lawyer. You straddle finance to international law. You serve on other boards. And there's just so much that you do. While chatting earlier, you were talking about your trips and the work that you're doing across the continent. You're obviously a very busy person. How do you straddle these divides? And are your friends and people around you surprised when they hear that you are this steeped in the social sector?
Well, I would be lying if I said it was easy. And so, honestly, I think at some point in time, there was some difficulty managing the various roles that I was engaged in. I think over time, you just develop your own rhythm to it and discipline so that you're able to show up at these various roles, be it in the boardroom, be it at work, be it with philanthropy, and honor the demands of each area. What I would say is that in some way, the roles feed into each other. Like, for example, the rigor of law and the background of law, you bring it into the corporate governance of the foundation and how we approach things. And the whole engagement in the philanthropic space also has helped me to develop a deeper level of empathy. And so I also approach certain aspects of the business world with a bit more sympathy for people and their backgrounds and what they're going through. So they feed it into each other. So in the end, I actually appreciate this widespread across the various sectors I play in. Does it surprise people that I'm deep into social impact? Not necessarily. I think most people have come to terms with it. What I would say is that they are intrigued. They want to know more about why we're doing what we're doing. They want to know how much of what we're doing we are doing. And by the time we start telling them what it is we're doing, how we're doing it, they tend to be impressed because we've somehow managed to turn something that was tragic in our lives as a family and make it into something that impacts thousands of lives. So I think people are more impressed and inspired by what we're doing rather than surprised per se. And I think that has really helped to navigate the various roles. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because it can't be easy when you think about what led to the establishment of a foundation in the first place. But it's always great to hear stories within our network and within the APF community of how something that, is not necessarily pleasant is translated into hope for others.
Yeah.
So well done for all that you do. And it's a perfect segue to my next question, which is really to understand how involved you were in the setting up of the foundation. And would like to know what informed the thematic areas you focus on: health, education, and economic empowerment. And as you respond to that, it would also be interesting to know if you found anything surprising as you began to work with the communities in which you serve.
With the founding process, I think in some way we can have COVID to thank for that. So mom passed in January 2020. We buried her February, and COVID set in March. So myself, my brothers, and my family and friends were all locked down. And so we had enough time to grieve in some way. And so myself, my father, my brothers, being together in the same house for months gave us more than enough time to have intense deliberations on what we want to achieve, how we want to do this. When I look back now, thank God we didn't rush that process. And as I said, the lockdown forced us into that setting to really think about this, engage with lawyers, NGO consultants, reach out to some members of the community we were thinking about approaching. So that setting really helped. So I was very involved in that founding process, a proper founding process, really. The areas we decided upon, that's education, economic empowerment, and healthcare. In some way, it was inherited. Take education, for example. My mom, in some way or another, had an informal system of supporting young girls through secondary school at the time and into university. So all we simply did was formalize that process and then expand it so we could reach more people. The idea is if you educate a woman, it's not just her, you're empowering the children she would raise, the community she's a part of. So that was a no-brainer. And it just ties into economic empowerment, as education is one of the surest routes to economic empowerment. And so I would say that was something we easily inherited from her. And even beyond just educating the girls, we also support skill acquisition centers for those women who are even beyond school learning age. And so that even if they can't get a certificate, at least they can get some skills to empower themselves economically in their society, which is something that's crucial in any case. With the healthcare, that really directly ties into my mom's experience because she battled cancer and she had the understanding that it was because of the resources she had that she was able to stand a chance, get some extension to her life. And so she had left specific instructions for us to actually designate funds from her estates into running a foundation that supported other women who perhaps did not have the resources to help themselves, battle sickness or disease. And so it's that interplay of inherited obligations and then direct mandates that sort of helped us create this blend. And I think when looking back, it all makes sense. It all makes sense now. But to be honest, the impact, with regards to impacts and surprises, there were a lot. I think I was very surprised as to the gap in the system. Because we've done a lot of work right now. I mean, at the last report, we've treated over 50,000 patients in our hospitals. We've had over 90,000 interventions, health interventions to the people around the community. So we've done a lot of work, but all that is still a drop in the bucket.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's a huge gap in market. And I think that's what I've come to learn, engaging in this process. Because when we were planning to set up this foundation, at some point in time, I really was pushing for us to, rather than set up our own foundation, simply support an existing foundation, existing structure, which will save us the overheads. I just felt, give the money to people who are already doing the work, who already have experience. But I think now, over time, I can accept I might have been wrong, because going through this process ourselves has actually been such an enriching experience. If not just the data we've been able to gather ourselves, but just the personalized touch of doing things rather than an arm's length approach of just giving money to others who would do the work for you. I'm grateful for the journey in going through with this. So I think that for me has really surprised me how I've come on board with this over time. Yeah.
Well done for all that you have done. We hear this a lot. You've done a lot, but you always understand, the understanding that the gap is so huge, and sometimes members of our community feel, like you said, it's a drop in the ocean, but it is a lot that you have done. So it's, I think it's worthy of acknowledgement and commendation, what has been done already. And you spoke a lot about your siblings and the conversations and deliberations you had setting up the foundation, and even acknowledging that you felt there should have been a different approach to how you went about executing your or giving to issues that are important to you, or causes that are important to you, versus setting up a foundation. And now a foundation has been set up. You've learned so much from it. And being a next-gen philanthropist and setting up or stewarding a foundation or resources comes with a lot of expectations. And how has stepping into this role shaped your approach to leadership and accountability? And another question that I would like you to speak to is how you see the next generation's approach to philanthropy. Do you think it's different from the generation prior to yours? You grew up seeing your parents give, you saw them being philanthropists. They may not have set up anything formal, but now it's formalized. How do you see the transition from one generation to the other? Is it a case of there is a radical approach to how the next generation does things, or is it a build on what has already been in place?
Well, first of all, I just thank God that for how far we've come. I mean, as you mentioned, it's still a lot of work we've been able to achieve, and I just thank God for that, for the health and the capacity to do it. When I think of accountability, I think it's one thing to be accountable to, let's say from my perspective, a client at work. It's one thing to be accountable to a board in a company. But I think with the foundation, it's a different dimension. In a sense, you feel accountable to a late mother who is not alive to ask how you are carrying out her legacy. Feel a bit accountable to thousands of women in certain areas that I would probably never visit again, who are entirely dependent on our continuous support to provide healthcare services to them. So there's definitely a different level of accountability. You're part of something bigger than yourself. When the management of the foundation give a report to the board around some of the projects we're running, and we get some reports and we hear the narratives of some of these people, where you're coming from, what you're going through, and how our resources are being used to help them, it's causes you to be a bit more sensitive. You just realize, okay, this is not just another project. It's almost like you've made a promise to these people and you have to deliver on that promise. Some say promises are not meant to be broken. And so you have to sort of deliver and keep at it. So I think in that way, I feel more accountable to contributing to this cause. For the next generation and how we do it, I think in our own case, I can speak for myself, my brothers, we're really just building on the foundations our parents set. And I think in doing that and building on that foundation, what we're really just trying to do is maybe ask a bit more difficult questions, try and get to the heart of the matter, systematic roots of problems, not just give for giving's sake, actually track the impact we're making, be more strategic and not just generous. I think we want to honor her legacy and we want to do this in memorial of her, but in some ways, it's not just something that honors a past memory. It also needs to involve with the society and sort of like adopting technology and new ways of addressing problems.
Yeah.
So I think that's a way that, at least from my perspective, myself and my brothers, we look at this in addressing what has been mandated to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll stay on the next gen question.
Yeah.
Is there a way next geners are misunderstood? And are you or have you been in a situation as a next gen philanthropist where you were misunderstood, and how did you address it?
Yes. I mean, anyone that is reading news reports these days or news articles will see that like the next gen in some way or another are usually misunderstood. Take, for example, be it the Gen Zs or the Gen Alphas. There can be some gap in understanding between generations. Personally, I think it's just because the next generation has a way of asking uncomfortable questions.
Right.
And because naturally, when you think about it, the next generation will inherit the problems of the older generation.
Absolutely.
But there is no obligation to inherit the answer to the problem. So they would ask the uncomfortable question. They would try and come to their own answer. They will, in some way, add flavor to the conversation by these uncomfortable questions. And so I think many times that's where the misunderstanding comes in. It shouldn't be seen as a threat. It should be seen as a gift, to the conversation and to answering some of the difficult questions we've not been able to answer for many years now. I think for me, personally, in my life, yes, I do. I have been in situations where I've had to ask difficult questions, but not so much in the philanthropic space, more in the more corporate world and business environment. But I think in some ways it's interconnected because ultimately, one way or another, the philanthropy is funded by the work that is done
in the
corporate space. And so there's a connection there. I do know that sometimes I've had challenge with pushing for new technology, adopting new technology. Older generations are not necessarily as inclined to adopt certain things so fast. I think in Nigeria as well, I mean, Nigeria has taught me a special kind of patience. Yeah, I think you learn to be incredibly patient about certain matters. I've been privileged to sit on certain boards and engage with certain people of the older generation. Even though I'm a millennial, these are people who are boomers or Gen X, and so there is still some gap in our understanding over certain things. And I think I've just had to learn that even if you're asking tough questions, even if you're asking difficult questions, you will not necessarily get the answer immediately. Sometimes the answer comes in fragments. Sometimes it comes in fragments across different people, different places over time.
Yeah.
And so the key is patience, really. And I've just learned that hold on to these different fragments, these different pieces, be patient, and over time put it together, and at an appointed time you can do something actionable with it. If you stay in the room long enough, the answer would sort of emerge. And that's just how I've come to approach it now.
Those are wise words coming from you. You're not a boomer, but that is, you said a lot there that I think we should hold on to, especially talking about how, these nuggets could come over time. It could be fragmented, but if you stay in the room long enough, you would get the answer and you would piece them together. Thank you very much for sharing that. I want to move to your experience as an APF member. You're a proud APF member,
Yes,
I hope.
am. Yes, I am.
How has being a part of the network shaped the work that you do at Jennifer Etuh Foundation and even you personally, if at all?
I think, well, personally, I want to say thank you. Thank you. I think being a part of APF has allowed me to come into contact with people such as yourself. And I'm grateful to that opportunity because in some way it shows me that this sort of work attracts a certain kind of person or certain groups of people who are deeply passionate about the cause, people who are determined and also generous, even with your resources, with your networks, with following up. And so thank you. I think thank you to yourself, thank you to your team. I read the news articles, and so thank you for what you do. I think from the foundation's perspective, it's just practical and significant for us to be a part of this sort of organization. Because on one level, it just reminds you that you are not isolated. You're not the only one doing what it is you're doing. There are people you can collaborate with so that you can even deliver more to the people you want to help. And so I think I mentioned this earlier in our other discussion that the resources are finite and demand is ever growing. And so community is leveraged there to actually engage with the people a bit more. Because I think what I've also learned in this path is that there's always need. Not just for women, not just for children, not just for healthcare, not just for education, various other needs. And they just keep coming. And if you don't have, I guess, a forum or society that you can collaborate with, it can be difficult to stay in your mandate.
Right.
And so, for me, part of understanding philanthropy is that philanthropy is about delivering your mandate, not necessarily the needs of every member of society.
Absolutely.
You stay in your mandate sustainably, deliver results,
impact,
and then just know that there are other people who are playing their own roles to meet the other needs of other people. And I think that helps,
right,
being a part of a forum of people.
And thank you too for showing up and being a valued member of the community. What makes the APF community a strong network of philanthropists and foundations is the quality of those in the network, and we appreciate organizations such as yours.
Thank you.
You started talking about systems change or systemic impact when we were speaking earlier. So as you think about Jennifer Etuh Foundation in the next 5-10 years, a long-term view to your work, what sort of impact would you like to see beyond programs and all that you're doing now?
I think long-term impact is important. I think in a simple way, I just want to see the seeds that we're sowing now become trees later on in life. Maybe 15, 20 years from now, we can look back and see that a girl we sponsored through school has not just made a life for herself, but is now impacting others, maybe even set up her own foundation, you know? And I think at the heart of impact is when you can see that cycle of generosity become self-sustaining. The people you've helped are helping other people, or in fact, they come back and sit with us as equals, as collaborators to do more on this project. And so I think that's it. The seeds you plant now, ultimately they grow and they bear fruits. I intend to live long enough to see that, some of these success stories, because that's, for me, that's where real impact is, that the generational growth from one person to another. It's something that you can't easily just capture on an annual report or your website page and writing numbers. It's not as easy as that. It's very much long term, but then it shows up as full-fledged human beings who are also impacting others and changing lives. And I think for me, that's what the real impact would be. Yeah.
Thank you. And we've had a very serious conversation, so we want to,
thank you,
take it a little bit lighter and ask some things that maybe we don't know about you, or others that know you may not even know about you. So are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Sure.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Deep focus or multitasking?
Deep focus.
To-do list or calendar blocking?
Calendar blocking.
Silence or background music while working?
Silence while working.
While working, so...
If it's gym, you need music.
It's music, right. Books or podcasts?
Books.
Morning workout or evening workout?
Morning.
Impact or influence?
Impact.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel.